Hello there.
I thought that was somebody walking, but I see you're more to it than that.
What was that?
Yes, I thought somebody was walking, but I see you've got a... Is that a camera or what?
Well, we have got a lovely day for an adventure. It's a jackets off job. It's still fairly early in the morning. Well, it's 11 o'clock, but the sun's starting to get warm, which is beautiful. I'm beside the River Ayr and I've just left Catrine. I hope that's how you pronounce it. And you can see just behind me on the other side of the river these red cliffs, for want of a better phrase. And I think as we progress along this path along the side of the River Ayr, we will see more of these red sandstone gorges, in fact. And it's a stone that I suspect is probably pretty typical for the sort of red sandstone that you see that makes up the buildings and the likes of Mauchline and the Ayr itself. I'm on the River Ayr Way. I'm just doing a very short bit of it. The River Ayr Way is a long distance walking trail that runs between Glenbuck and Ayr. It's about 40 or 44 miles in total, and it goes between at Glenbuck. It's where the River Ayr sort of starts, or where it becomes some kind of waterway, and it follows it all the way, as I say, to Ayr and the ocean. I'm just doing a very short bit at the moment between Catrine and Failford. Having said that, at Failford I'm going to do an extra mile further on, and then I'll come back that same mile and I'll sort of end at Failford. Sometimes when you're doing some of these long distance walks, whether you're doing them in bits or the whole thing, it can at times be a little bit challenging trying to figure out how to get from A to B in public transport and such like. I think I've talked about this before. And in many ways, if you're planning it to do a long distance walking trail, I remember when I used to do quite a few of them. I used to do the whole walk, not just bits at a time. And part of the enjoyment of the whole thing was in sitting down at a table with all your maps and a pen and a bit of paper and planning the whole thing, trying to figure out how you could get to such and such a location, how you could get back from such and such location, if there wasn't any transport, or you know, you've got to either get somewhere where you're going to be staying the night. You know, the planning's kind of critical for these things, and it's part of the enjoyment. But as I say, I'm just doing a very short bit between Catrine and Failford. It's about 5 miles, 5.5 miles. If I add on the extra mile beyond Failford, then that mile back, it's maybe about 7 miles in total. Just a nice wee walk. I've not done this before, and apparently there is, I mean, I love walking by water anyway, but there is apparently some very scenic, deep gorges that will be bristling with this same red sandstone. So if you're ready for an adventure, then let's go. Just a quick lunch stop. I'm travelling light, so it's just water and a banana. What more does a man need in life? So as I may have said earlier, I've not been on any part of the River Ayr Way before, and it's always good to get out and about and explore bits of ground that you've not been on. It's all been rather pleasant and more or less what I expected. Sort of riverside paths on the edge of gorges and ravines. FedEx has got to get through. The number of delivery vans that are on the road these days, most of whom seem to be speeding, or at least going awful fast. It's nobody's business. Yeah, so it's been just as I expected. We're not too far from Failford, and I will at the end of the video pop in for a beer. But as I said at the start, I'm going to go about a mile beyond Failford, because in Failford Gorge, or whatever it's called, canyon, a ravine, there is something worth having a look at apparently. Don't know if I'll find it, but we'll have a quick look and then we'll head back and have a beer. There's a programme on the television, I think it's called Mortimer and Whitehouse, and forgive me if I've got one of those names slightly wrong. I used to think it was on Channel 4, but at the moment it's on BBC 2, and perhaps it's always been on BBC 2. It's just a really good programme. One of these half-hour programmes that just brightens up your whole day. It's a combination of humour, serious stuff, and very good camera work. It's just a really good combination. Mortimer and Whitehouse, they're both comics. That's their profession, and they're getting on in years. They've also both had heart problems. One's had major heart surgery, and I'm not sure about the other one. He's probably just had some sort of procedure involving his heart. I don't know what it's been. And one of them's what you might call an expert at fishing, the other one's trying to pick it up. And the expert always gets a bit agitated by the incompetencies of the other guy for his quota fish. Don't reel. He's caught a fish, he just wants to reel it in. But I always find that when you get that combination of humour and very serious subjects, it just makes for a really good blend of material. You can sort of see it in books by Bill Bryson, the travel author, and he also has a really good blend of serious subjects and humour that just kind of suddenly strikes you out of the blue, and you find yourself chuckling out loud. But in the BBC Two television programme, Mortimer and Whitehouse, one of them, after the end of each day, they go back to a house. They rent a different house for filming, and they eat and chat and stuff, have a drink. And one of them was looking out of a window and just having a moment to himself and thinking, I wonder how many more windows and views he'll get to see out of windows, you know. And I think as we all get older, we wonder how long we have left in life. Most people probably think, I wonder how many more summers I'll see. I, on the other hand, wonder how many more underpants I'll have to buy. I don't buy underpants that often, maybe every couple of years. But it's always a very trying thing, buying underpants. It's not a good thing to have to do. I wonder if some of these delivery companies, Eat Me and Delivery Do, or whatever you call them, would get you underpants. That'd be worthwhile for a van in the road. I'd be all for that. But you know, I just wonder how many more times. I bought underpants the other day. It was a horrific experience, you know. Underpants these days are like eggs. There's just too much choice. You're standing there looking at the shelves and you're thinking, oh, what the heck's going on? I just want underpants. Some have got buttons, some don't. Some have got this, some have got that, some have got bits that stick out, and you think, what's going on? I just want underpants. And all the while that you're standing there trying to figure out what's what, about half a dozen security guards are gradually getting nearer and nearer, so that when you make the move and stuff some underpants under your shirt, they'll just be able to grab you quickly. So anyway, that's the underpants bought, you know. That's a little bit for another couple of years, but will I last another couple of years? That could well be the last underpants I will ever buy. Yeah. Well, as I said earlier, I've come beyond Failford for a bit. Quite a lot of steps there. I thought, oh no, how long is this going? The information board near the beginning of the walk suggests that this is about 1.5 hours from the information board to here and back. I'm probably a quicker walker. I suspect I'll do it in less than an hour, but it felt long. I'm hoping you can see that in the background, the set of steps carved into the red sandstone, and this is called Peden's Cove. It is related to Alexander Peden, who was a Covenanting preacher who had to conduct these sermons in secret in hidden places, and it is said that Covenanters carved these steps out of the stone. Peden would have gone up there to a high point and preached to people. I'm not sure where the congregation would have been, perhaps the other side of the river, I'm not too sure. And Peden didn't want to be recognised because he was a wanted man. So he took to wearing a mask to hide his identity, and the mask looks a bit scary, you know. It's got a beard and everything. It looks a bit frightening. And you know, to my utter shame, I've never really read into the Covenanters, and I really don't know what the Covenanters were all about. I mean, it's about religion. I think there's a Scottish-English element to it. I've always found anything to do with religion to be awful complicated, and I've probably shied away from it for that reason. I think religion, you know, it's done more harm over time, and I think we could all do without religion. That said, if we didn't have religion, I'm sure there'd be something else. We would be knocking lumps out of each other about. It's just man's nature to be at war over something. So Peden's Cove, I'm now going to head back to Failford. I think I'm due a pint of beer. Let's go. Actually, while I remember, I think it's important to say here, there's a barrier here. You shouldn't, under any circumstances, try to go over this barrier and make your way up the steps. They are very eroded, they are very high, and they are very dangerous. So keep your children roped on and just don't go beyond this wooden barrier. It's as simple as that. Well, that's me in the Failford Inn, and I'm drinking a ginger beer instead of a pint of beer. Sometimes a ginger beer cold's quite nice, you know, just the job. Wow. Well, that's the River Ayr behind me. It's been a good walk. And of course I'll now figure out what bit of the River Ayr Way to do next. Some parts, I'm not necessarily going to do the whole thing. I think maybe there's at least one other bit in it for me, heading towards Ayr itself. But there's bits where public transport is an issue, and you know, you might have to be thinking about taxis and things. I mean, initially for this walk I was going to walk from beyond Failford to Stair, but Stair doesn't have a bus service. Okay, it's not a big place, you know, I dare say it's just a few buildings. We can't possibly provide public transport to every place, you know. We can't have buses on every single road in the country. That said, there is fewer buses these days now than there used to be. And I think we have to sort of try and come up with innovative ideas on how to make it easier for visitors and tourists to get about the place. Stirling, for example, Stirling District Council come up with an idea whereby they would use taxis to take people who wish to go to areas that didn't have a bus service. I forget what the scheme's called, but you would dial a specific number to book your taxi, and the amount that you would have to pay was sort of an equivalent amount to how a bus fare would be. But I've used it probably twice, I think, and kind of chatted to the drivers on each occasion, and for what I gathered, that you know, the drivers, the taxi firms don't seem to make a lot of money out of it. You know, one driver gave me the impression that it was only just covering his fuel costs for the journey. But you know, that said, it is an innovative idea, and perhaps it just needs a few tweaks to bring it to a place that is good for everyone, customers and taxi firms. I mean, these days I'm finding it more and more difficult to get to certain areas. I'm having to plan more, and I'm seeing areas that I simply can't get to. And I'm I mean, for example, and I'll not tell you what the area was, but I was looking at a walk recently and I thought, I can maybe get a taxi from a particular location to another place. I could start the walk there, walk back to a place where I got a bus from. And I kind of looked at the distance, and I thought a taxi firm was actually in a particular village. As it transpired, it very much looks as if they weren't, and they were elsewhere in a kind of nearby town. Because I was thinking, well, what would I be prepared to pay for a taxi? And I was thinking, 12 quid. And I thought, if it's as much as £15, I can maybe stretch to that. And I asked for a coat. And when the coat came back, it was £45. And I thought, well, that knocks that in the head in. £45. But that large fare was, I think, because the taxi had to come from a nearby town. It wasn't, didn't have offices in the village in question. But you know, it's just, it's difficult. I don't know how visitors manage. Sometimes when you're doing long distance walks, you may have to walk further than you would perhaps be happy with, because at the end of every day you're going to have to find a place that you can lay your head and sleep in, or get transport to a place that you can find accommodation. It's all in the planning. This is the first time I've used public transport without a mask. It's no longer law here in Scotland, it's just advisory. It was a nightmare for me wearing a mask because my glasses would steam up. You know, 2 years and I still haven't figured out how to stop my glasses from steaming up. So I've taken my glasses off, which means I'm not getting a proper view out of train and bus windows. In supermarkets I have to take them off and carry them about the place. Sometimes putting my glasses down on shelves in supermarkets while I look at a particular item. You know, I'll have so many hands, basket, glasses, item. And there was one occasion when I woke up the next day and I thought, I can't find my glasses. Then I thought, I've left them in the supermarket. And there they were, still in the egg aisle on a shelf beside eggs. So it's been a bit of a nightmare. I'm glad to see the back of masks, to be honest. Quite a few people were still wearing them. It's people's personal choice now. Anyway, until the next time, I'm Eddie Burns. Bye for now.